Welcome to the Lady Up America podcast. I'm Diane, Canada, your host. I am so glad you're here today, ladies. Thanks for tuning in. Boy, do we have a treat for you today. You've heard him. He's been part of the soundtrack of our lives, especially when we look at the patriotic soundtrack. Lee Greenwood is an award-winning, very decorated singer and songwriter. You've seen him on the trail recently with President Trump. His song, God Bless the USA, is celebrating its 40th anniversary this year. I can't believe it. And of course, it's Trump's theme song. But we want to talk today about the meaning behind that song. We're going to be talking about family and all of these things that we care so much about. So stay with me. We'll be right back with Lee Greenwood.
Around this town, lady up around this town. Victory on the battleground, we claim it now. Lady up, lady up. Lady up, lady up.
All right, ladies, welcome back. I'm so excited for you to get to meet Lee today. I'm not going to even go into long introductions. I think we all know exactly who he is. We want to hear his heart today. So please welcome to the show, Lee Greenwood. Good morning, Lee. How are you?
Good morning, Diane. And I'm having my first cup of coffee, by the way.
Oh, good. I have mine too. So cheers. Lee, thank you so much for coming on today. Your voice is so important for my audience right now. We've got a lot of moms out there that are hurting, that are scared, that are just seeing the trajectory of our country. They feel helpless. Your song, God Bless the USA, congratulations on the anniversary of that, by the way, and all of the awards and all
Thank
of
you.
the success that has brought to you personally. But it's so hopeful. And I think that just a dose of hope from Lee Greenwood today would be good medicine.
Well, thank you. I am an eternal optimist. I was a junior optimist, by the way, when I was in high school. No, I was in junior high school, and we had a regional contest for speaking, and I did very well.
Oh,
I can remember going to Lake Tahoe for the regional, and I was beat by a high school student. But it was interesting that becoming an optimist, becoming what I believe I am anyway, naturally, and that is I look at the good side of stuff.
mhm.
And a glass can be half full or half empty, but I always look at it as half full.
Yeah,
I expect the best, but prepare for the worst.
right.
And so that's kind of a mantra I go by. But since your audience is all moms, I will tell you about my mom and how I was raised. My father joined the Navy right after the bombing of Pearl Harbor, and in 1941. And so my mother, I have an older sister. She had two children to take care of while my dad's in the Navy for 4 years and then the Merchant Marine. I didn't really know him till I was 16 or 17, but didn't get a chance to know my mom well either because she had to work all the time. And with your audience, I know mothers know what it means when you have to work to make sure you can make a living,
Mhm.
because sometimes it takes two economies to
Yeah.
make a family go forward. And I feel a lot of empathy for someone who has kids early and then and that's their choice. But of course, then it becomes like, who do I rely on to help my family eat? And it's basically yourself.
Mhm.
And so you go to work and you work hard. And I did that my whole life, as did my mother. My mother was a comptometer operator for Standard Oil. That's an
Oh,
early computer. And she was a
wow.
clerk for Southern Pacific, the railroad, in the afternoons when she got off work, and then would play in the bars at night as a musician. She
Huh.
was a piano player and a singer.
Wow.
And the piano that she would play on to practice was what I learned on in our trailer in Sacramento, California. I was raised by my grandparents because my mother could not handle kids and work. And
Wow.
so, again, I have empathy for your audience, that those who have to go through that. You know, we had a nurse recently was taking care of my wife's father just before he passed away this year.
Yes, and we're so
And
sorry.
she was working two jobs, and she had two kids at home. I said, how do you handle that? I said, well, I have to marginalize my time. I have to make sure that when I get through with one job, I go home and see my kids between their school and games or whatever they have to do. And then I go back to my second job, and then I go home and have somebody meeting my kids when they get out of school and taking them home. And, it's like that whole process is like, God bless mothers, who have to work
We can
so hard.
organize. I'll tell you, we can compartmentalize and organize like nobody.
Oh, I believe me, my wife and I have been married 32 years. She was former Miss Tennessee USA and from Nashville, and she can organize. She organizes my life as well.
Yeah, you're so right. My mom was a single mom too. My father was a pastor when I was young and left us when I was about 8. And so we went from being kind of the dutiful pastor's family to all of a sudden mom's single and doesn't know how to figure it out. But she did figure it out. She went to work as a governess for an affluent family. And so she made it work. We were able to be with her on spring breaks and during the summers and all that. You just get resourceful. I think when you have to, you get resourceful. And then I certainly
What's that
had.
phrase? It's the mother of invention is necessity.
Yes, that's right. That's
And
right.
so
Yes.
I can want, we're very blessed in the United States of America. There is no doubt about it.
Yeah.
But there are poor sections of the country, and there's people in California. The homeless is staggering,
Yes.
and I blame the California politics.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
sorry. I'm from California,
Yeah.
and there was plenty of work for me because I wanted it. I could
Yes.
do anything.
Yes.
And my grandparents were sharecroppers. And so we had fruit on the farm that actually at a very early age, my grandmother would let me uh, cut flowers and pick fruit and put them in little baskets that I would made myself out of like straw
Huh.
and take them down to the Chinese market and sell them and buy myself my own socks and shoes. That
Mhm.
if you're industrious, you can make stuff happen. And
That's
my
right.
grandmother was like that. Talking about mothers, I mean, there's nothing greater than a grandmother because they're going to give you everything your mother won't.
Yes, they will. And a good grandchild knows how to work grandma for sure. Yeah, it's so true. This industriousness, this resourcefulness, all of this that we had growing up that, you had, I had, you know, and I was a single mom for a long time too, kind of unique circumstance with me, but you get resourceful, you figure it out when you're motivated. We have a society right now, a couple of generations now that just are okay with sitting back and letting the government just give them everything or not becoming resourceful, becoming very blame. They're just full of blame and all these reasons why they can't. And I'm an optimistic person too. I used to have this quote that would say, "Those who say it can't be done should get out of the way of those of us who are doing it." And
Well,
I
that's a
just
good one.
wish that was in this generation. I wish that was in our kids today. Where do you think?
Taking a handout, Diane, is counterproductive to our survival.
Yes.
When the Pilgrims landed at Plymouth Rock, they had no choice but to rely on themselves.
Yes.
Somewhere we've lost that and particularly in big cities, because in most big cities, and I say very large cities, not small little towns, um, the government has gotten such a way to take care of the populace. It has become a habit.
Yes.
And the habit then is dependent upon the government from then on
Mm,
because they don't know any other way.
mm,
You can do the same thing with an animal. You can kill the instinct for an animal to hunt for itself, which would be a predator like an eagle or a
mhm,
lion. You
mhm.
can teach them to be dependent upon you, and then they lose that instinct to hunt. And that's kind of like what big government has done in major cities. You name it: Chicago, Detroit, New York, Cleveland, any place, of course, in California, where the government says we have so many programs to protect the people, but it's not really protecting the people. It's taking away their incentive to be industrious, inventive, find a job, and make your way by yourself instead of dependent on somebody else. They're the worst at it in California. I can't believe that beautiful state has turned the way it has.
I know. That is such a great analogy, removing and kind of taking away the instinct for them to hunt. I love that. And the other thing that it does is it robs people of their dignity and the ability to accomplish that healthy pride that you can get from pushing past hard things and getting to the other side where you feel that sense of accomplishment. I think that's a travesty that we've robbed people of, with this
Yeah, it's a
mentality.
sad. It's sad that it happens like that.
Yeah.
But it's not for me and my family. And I have two sons. Blessed by my wife's giving me two sons. They were
Mhm.
both born in Nashville. I never thought I'd ever have a Tennessee wife and two Nashville sons, but I am truly a part of the fabric of Tennessee. I love the state. We're right in the middle of the weather. The cold weather goes north, the hot weather stays south.
Nice.
So we're in a good place here in Nashville. But
You're in
but
the
I
slipstream.
my younger son, both of our boys went to a private academy in Franklin,
Mhm.
and Dalton, our older son, who's now 29, was valedictorian there at his academy at
Yeah.
BGA,
Uh-huh.
Battleground Academy.
Yes.
And then he went to Washington Lee and got his degree in biochemistry, his undergrad.
Wow.
And I thought that was the end of college. I didn't know there was an upper grad and a lower grad. I thought that when you finish college, you get a degree. That's it.
Yeah, I thought that
No,
too.
there's more,
Oh,
and it's costly. But he went to Vanderbilt and for 5 years and got a PhD in cancer research and immunology, and they paid him. So I was like, oh, okay,
oh my
I'm okay
goodness.
with that. And
Wow.
he's he's a biotech analyst for William Blair in Chicago now,
Oh my
and
goodness.
married his beautiful wife. And we love her to death because we didn't have any daughters. And she's a teacher and teaches pre-K in Chicago schools. You think
Wow.
that's challenging?
Yes. Oh, I
So
bet.
we love her. No grandchildren yet. And our younger son's 26. He went as a chancellor scholar at TCU in Fort Worth, Texas. He also went to BGA, and he was a brilliant actor and musician and singer. And he is now at the University of Miami getting his master's in musical engineering and producing. And he's about to launch and hopefully get a job. So that's
Wow.
of course that's the main aim. But nobody in his life yet that will take or distract him from what he's going to try to do. And if your audience goes to PK Greenwood, that's his name is Parker, but PK Greenwood, you'll find his music, and he's just released his first song, so it's kind of cool.
Wow. Wow. I mean, I'm sure you're so proud. And they are the epitome of what can be accomplished when you put your head down and you work hard. I love that. We have a lot of moms out here right now that listen to me, and I share in this with them. A lot of division in families. Even though their children are accomplishing a lot and they're proud of them on that front, we have a lot of awkwardness around Thanksgiving dinner table, or maybe they're not invited to Thanksgiving because of political differences. A lot of this cultural stuff that is really dividing families. What would you say to
Yeah,
that mom out there
yeah.
who's facing the holidays?
Blended families it can be beautiful and it can be tough.
Yeah.
One of my very closest friends is June Scobie Rogers, and when the Challenger went down, I played the Astrodome, and President Bush was there, 41, and I was a close ally of his and friend. And he sent his Secret Service guy to come and get me. He said, I want you to meet the families of the Challenger. And I said, of course. So I became very close to June at the time. Her husband was pilot of the Challenger, Dick Scobie.
Wow.
And so for the next 20 years, we raised funds for education centers for the Challenger facilities around the country. There are over 50 between the United States and Canada.
Wow.
And bereavement, of course, grieving.
Yeah.
And she spent a lot of time in church. And lo and behold, she meets another man who is a military hero, a 3-star general named Don Rogers. He was he was on the Joint Chiefs of Staff for a while, and just a great guy. And they marry.
Wow.
And so a blended family that they all love each other and they all get along. I've seen the opposite. I've seen, I was divorced several times before I met my wife, Kim. And such a beautiful romance we had and still do. But I've seen people who go through that and then they remarry and they cannot seem to make the family get along. And I'm sorry for you if that's the case. But any moms out there, if you have to go through that, be patient. Just constantly do what women do best, and that's give love. And try to make sure you put your family, first. And I think, God will step in eventually and soften their hearts.
Yeah, a good friend of mine said that in situations like that, and that is the case with me too. Of course, the political ideologies and then just the traditional family dynamics that can go on with blended families. My friend said that their heart is like ice, and only the sun, meaning Jesus, can melt it. And I love that.
That's a good way to put it. I like that.
Yeah. One of the lines in your song that I love so much is that if tomorrow everything was gone and that I'd worked for all my life and I had to start again, reinventing yourself, coming back, kind of rising that phoenix from the ashes idea again, so hopeful. We saw that in spades on the Butler stage with Trump when after the near assassination attempt and now he returns there and he's kind of come back and he's he's reinvented himself several times in his career. When you see what's going on with him right now in our country and standing on that stage in Butler the other day, singing that for him when he returns to that stage, just you personally, what was that moment like for you?
Diane, I've been there. I've been down. I mean, and I meant it in my song. I lived those lyrics. If
Mm,
tomorrow everything was gone and I had nothing else but my family,
yeah.
I still, because I live in a free country called America, I
Yes.
have the right to pursue my passion. And as long as I treat everybody around me with the same fairness,
Mm,
I can be successful.
yes.
And you're mentioning President Trump. He's gone through the worst personal assassinations that I could ever imagine somebody bringing to bear on a candidate that's running for president of the United States.
Amen to that.
The indictments,
Yeah.
the frivolous indictments. I can't understand how they think that that's not in. It's certainly not legal in my mind
Right.
that they would attack somebody just to try to bring them down and bring them out of the election. But then, of course, the physical assassination attempt,
Yeah.
which goes beyond me, that anyone would think. I mean, I was alive and I watched the Reagan a personal
Yeah.
attempt assassination. I
Yeah.
saw the shooting of Kennedy on television, and so I've lived through several times now that I've lost a president that I supported and liked, and because I voted for Kennedy,
Mhm.
and I voted for Bush, and if I was alive, I'd probably voted for Lincoln, but
Yeah.
but whether Democrat or Republican, I vote for the man. And let me tell
Right.
you, I know the Republicans and the Democrats don't like Trump. When he came out with that thing, I'm going to clean the swamp. He
Yeah.
meant anyone that was not pulling for America.
Yes.
And I love that idea, and so did America.
Yes. So
And
do I.
we haven't lost the idea, but the left, the people on the left, seem to think they can change the minds of those people who voted for Trump the first time, and they can't.
Right.
That rally in Butler, Pennsylvania that I was at, that I walked out and sang for the president for probably the 15th time, because during his first term, I sang a lot for him and introduced him many times on stage, him and the vice president. And so this audience was only electrified by his defiance to walk out on stage again in the same place that he got shot. You'd think he'd be a little gun shy. May I use that phrase? Because I use that sometime when in different environments. I'm a little gun shy about touching the hot stove,
Yeah.
but this is really, you'd think he would be gun shy stepping on that same stage that he got attempted shot. But he's unafraid. And he knows now that the Secret Service are going to do their job this time, and then that's a whole nother story.
Yeah.
But I was proud of him, and I was proud to be by his side. And when I reached out to shake hands with him, which I thought was appropriate,
Yes.
most of the time I just stand back and I salute him, which
Right.
I've done with any president that I've ever sang for, and there's been 10 of those.
Yeah.
But I reached out to shake hands because I wanted to say, I admire you for being here. And he reached out and grabbed me and drugged me.
I saw that. He
He's-
pulled you.
He's a big
Yeah.
fella, he gave me a bear hug. And it felt at that moment a lot like my grandfather, who would do the same thing, who would hug
Yeah.
me and say, I love you, son. I just kind of love that.
Yeah. I love that too. He's just, I tell you, for as much as they try to paint him as this, horrible person, all I see from him is warmth. I think warmth for the right people, and certainly a militant, very strong person toward the wrong people. I think he's just that perfect balance. I loved seeing him at the RNC with his granddaughter in his lap. These are his children and grandchildren he's trying to protect too. And I think we have a lot of moms listening, Lee, that you know, that just don't feel like their vote matters. They're saying that they're so tired of the news. They're tired of the rhetoric on both sides.
So are
They
we.
Yeah, we all are too. We gotta get them motivated to vote. Like, we need to get them to the polls, because I'll tell you, whether or not whatever happens this election, whichever way it goes, and of course we all hope, we pray over Trump every day. We hope that he gets back in. But whichever way it goes, we still have to do our part and show up and be part of the process. And God's hand is on Trump, clearly, in Butler, Pennsylvania. I mean, what are the odds that that man is still alive
Yeah.
after just a millisecond of turning his head? So God's hand is on him, and God uses imperfect people. We know this from the stories in the Bible. He doesn't have to be perfect to be effective. God can work through him. So for that mom that's out there right now saying, I don't know, I'm not even going to go to the polls. My vote's not going to matter anyway. What can little old me do? What would you say to her, Lee?
I met a girl the other day at the Waffle House. That's my favorite place to go. And we always took my sons there when they were very young. And that was kind of the dad and son thing. And it's oddly enough, I made a lot of friends there at the Waffle Houses as well, here in Franklin, where we live. But when we talk about the logical way to look at something, if you look at the Biden family and you compare that to the Trump family, you can say whatever you want to say about. I've known Donald Trump a long time. My wife was the director and is the director for Miss Tennessee, Georgia, and Mississippi for Miss USA, Miss Universe.
Oh, yeah.
Kim was a Miss Tennessee USA, so she knew Donald Trump before I did. So 21 years, she knew him. And even though people say, yeah, well, he was a womanizer and he did this little thing, he did that little thing, but to tell the truth, his heart is really big. And look at his family. Look how beautiful they are. And you're right. His granddaughter at the RNC, wasn't she fabulous?
Oh,
And how she stood
adorable.
up and talked. That's a lifetime of loving her grandfather, loving Donald Trump and what he did for her and how he loves his family. That's first and foremost. So if your audience is mostly mothers, let's look at that first. Let's look at the obvious. The second thing is my point about the Waffle House. I asked a young waitress, I said, who are you voting for? And I didn't mean that to make her feel bad, but I did want to make sure that she understood that we're going to talk about it. So I asked her, I said, are you going to vote? And she said, no, I haven't looked at the issues and it takes some time to register. And I said, hold on just a second. You have no idea about the Declaration of Independence and how this country started with men who gave up a chance to live. They put their lives on the line, their entire fortunes, their families were all killed and everything, who signed a document that says, I believe America is worth fighting and dying for. And the only way you're going to save that is to vote. You only have one vote, that's true. But if 320 million people do not vote because they don't believe in it, we lose the right to vote. And I said, you have to vote. I don't care who you vote for at this point. You have to vote. Go register. And she said, okay, I will. So just tell everybody, all your mom's audiences, folks, just take a moment. Whether it's early voting, which I don't really believe in, and I don't believe in late voting. I'm the believer that you go to the polls and you vote the day of the election, the vote that you're supposed to vote. And those poor people in North Carolina, that a lot of them, they don't have cell service. They can't early vote. A lot of the polling places were destroyed. And they can't, and so they have to find a new polling place, and they have no transportation. The roads are down. There's probably 30,000 people that can't even get to the polls in North Carolina. That's very unfortunate at this time when North Carolina being a swing state. So it's like, folks, get out and make a difference. Go vote.
Yeah, 100%. And I know Laura Trump's they're trying to come up with some creative ways to be able to help those people in North Carolina to be able to vote, and probably Florida too. But yes, it is so important. It's our not only is it our right, which people, we so appreciate as Americans, it's our right to vote, but it's our duty to do that. It's our duty to choose our leaders. And again, I know a lot of you moms that are listening are going to say, well, they cheat anyway, or it doesn't matter. Listen, you just show up and do what you're supposed to do. Let God handle the rest, but we have to show, I love when Trump says we got to show up in such force that it's too big to rig. And that's the truth.
Well, that's true. I do say this a lot, and that is, it's not those who vote, it's those who counts the vote. And I want to make sure that we do have a fair election. I mean, the last time that this happened, I was very concerned. And although the powers that be, and I don't know who had made those decisions, they said, well, no, it was a fair election. There was no rigging of the machines. If you've got an internet, you can change the votes in a machine.
That's right.
And the paper ballots, if you're old enough to remember, Diane, the hanging chads in Florida, the paper ballots, that may not be an answer either. But there has to be something. And that's my only thing about um, I don't like the federal government running things. I think the states should run things. Even communities should run things.
Yeah.
And mayors of cities should run things in their own community because they know what people need. But
Yeah.
voting, that may be the one thing that I think the federal government should run, even with the danger of if the federal government runs it, they can rig it. But at the same time, it makes it same across all 50 states.
Yeah.
And that's what we need. We need a normalized voting process because this currently, obviously, it's getting a little tainted the way it is
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, there's so many opportunities. I was on a news program recently, and they were putting me in a corner about this, and they were trying to push me in a corner. And they said, "Now, Diane, surely you don't think that the 2020 election was rigged?" And I said, my response to that, Lee, was just we had unprecedented changes to our voting laws during COVID. We had things that had never been tried before, never been done before. How can we be so quick to say that there wasn't cheating? How can we be so quick to say that it was fair when we had all these massive changes? So,
Well, let me say this: the right only lost by 44,000 votes.
mm,
We are 320 million people, and that was only 44,000. I will say it may not have been cheating,
yeah,
but there have been so adamant people to get rid of Donald Trump
yeah,
in Nevada and Georgia and Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. There were each one was different, and it added up just enough to make him lose the election.
yes,
And I talked to him at the Oval Office just before he left the presidency, and he was adamant that he had been hornswoggled.
yeah, yeah.
That
Well,
he had, that
clearly,
he
a
had
lot of
been.
America believes that too, because look at that, we're
Yeah.
turning out in force for him.
Well, let's
I
just
don't.
hope so.
Yeah, yeah, I hope so. So moms listening out there, you must go vote. Promise me and Lee right now you're going to go vote.
Yeah,
Let's shift for
please.
just a sec. I know we have to let you go here shortly, but let me shift for just a minute to this incredible Bible, the God Bless the USA Bible that has just been released recently, and it's commemorating your 40-year anniversary of the song. You've got a handwritten note to folks in the back on the lyrics. Trump has endorsed it. It's got the beautiful thing about it, ladies, is that it's got the founding documents in the back of the book. Oh, you have it. Oh, great. Oh, and that's signed by Trump. Wonderful. Wow.
Yeah, in the back
Wow.
of the Bible, requested by the publisher, is my handwritten lyrics of "God Bless USA" chorus. I'm proud to
Oh,
be an American.
yeah.
And of course, it has the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, the Bill of Rights, and we included the Pledge of Allegiance, which is not a founding document, but in 1955, it was finally made something that we had to do. I actually took that oath the same as a military person when I was a member of the NEA, appointed by Bush. So, yeah, this is a beautiful book. It's leather bound, and it does say Holy Bible, and it is the King James Version. That's our favorite. We have an
Yeah.
American Standard, but I like the King James. My wife and I both have our personal Bibles, but we have one of these now on the coffee table, and people come in there. They go, "Oh, that's so beautiful," and they look at it, handle it, and then they, of course, look for the documents in the back. Diane, I have to tell you how important it is to have someone who has become a citizen of the United States
Uh-huh.
legally,
Uh-huh.
and it takes 7 years. They know more about this country than I do, and
Yeah.
I studied history pretty extensively, and I've traveled extensively. I know a lot about the country. A lot of people don't just because I travel. Travel gives you wisdom. But
Yes.
however, you get it, somebody who became a citizen of the United States, and they see this, and they look at the documents in the back where they will immediately turn to the Constitution, and not just the preamble, but it's the whole Constitution. It's readable. It's easy to see and easy to read. And the Bill of Rights, which lets them know what their rights are as an American citizen. It's really important to have this Bible.
It
So go to
really is.
GodBlessTheUSABible.com. That's
Okay.
God Bless the USA. That's the name of the song. GodBlessUSABible.com. It's really easy. And pick up one of these and give it to veterans. If you already got a Bible, buy one and give it to a veteran because they really admire this.
I love it. And I love that it's easy to read too. Even the King James, the font is big. I've seen it, and it's in the back. The founding documents and even the pledge are not in script; they're in legible, more
Right.
legible print. So I think for a lot of people, Lee, they pick that Bible up. It might be the first time they've ever read the Constitution or the Declaration. So I
Well,
commend
that's
you.
true.
hmm I commend you all for putting that out. I think it's so timely. It's so important. It just seems like it's a perfect storm for revival in our country right now too. And that
I want to
optimism.
remind everybody, this is not something we did yesterday. We've been promoting this Bible for 5 years.
Really? Oh, I didn't realize it had been out 5 years already. Wow. But, I mean, the timing, though, with it getting a lot of attention now, it just seems really perfect. Make great Christmas gifts. I mean, I think I'm gonna probably order a ton of them for Christmas myself. I think, everyone you're looking for great Christmas gifts. I mean, what better one than that? And especially we need that so much right now in America.
Thank you.
Um, so one last thing before we go. I know Donald Trump believes that we are one election away from Marxism. I believe that. I think this is the most crucial election of our lifetime. Do you feel like this is more consequential than other elections in the past?
Um, because I've lived through quite a few.
Yes.
Um, there's two schools of thought, Diane. The first is a lot of people are struggling to make a living.
Yeah.
I mean, the affluent part of the United States, the middle class is shrinking a little, and you have a bigger division of the very rich and the very poor.
Mm-hmm.
If you're really busy and you don't have much time to pay attention to politics, and all you do is watch CNN or Fox,
Yeah.
you're getting biased opinions on both networks. It's
Yes.
really difficult to get the real news. If you have time, try to find out what the truth is. That's first. Try to find the truth, and certainly vote. I lived through Vietnam, and when people say we've been stalemated in Congress because we're so divided,
Mm-hmm.
do you not remember the Civil War? Do you not remember Vietnam?
Mm-hmm.
I lived through that. I remember how divided we were. Remember the song? 3 Dead in Ohio. That's when the
Yeah.
National Guard opened up with real ammunition on college students because they were protesting. We'll always protest, and it's good to do that. But you shouldn't get violent in a
Right.
protest.
Right.
And if you have time to do that and you want to protest, do it safely and legally. Don't
Right.
don't get violent. But if you have time to pay attention to the real truth,
Mm-hmm.
find the real truth of what matters are, and you don't have to get involved politically. Support your candidate if you can make a donation of $5 or whatever. That
Mhm.
makes a difference. If we have 300 million people making a $5 donation, that does make a difference.
Yes.
But otherwise, just stick to your belief and try to just like get involved a little bit. But if it's all you're doing is shuttling your kids from baseball to school and back and forth, it's tough. It's tough to get
Yeah.
involved. But
Yeah.
but it's not tough to have conversation and
Yeah.
have conversation with those people who are your friends and around you, and
Mhm.
make sure that you open up the subject of who's going to be president and who's going to be your local congressman and senator. That will
Mhm.
make a difference.
Yeah. Yeah, it will. Those little incremental things. I think if we look at the whole elephant, it's overwhelming, but we can start with a toe, right? We can start nibbling in our own backyard, our own kitchen tables, our own
Right.
communities. Yeah, and that's what we're all about here at Lady Up, is helping you have those conversations in a healthy way where you're gracefully winning people back to our values. Lee, it has just been an absolute pleasure having you. I know there's so much going on right now, and thanks for carving out some time for us today. Really appreciate it.
You're so welcome. I try to make an intelligent conversation. I'm a farmer from California. I had seasoned English, but I do believe in America and what it stands for. And my wife and I tour a lot around the world, and we try to be ambassadors for our country. When you're somewhere else, and not just in Europe or Africa or South America, but you're somewhere else, and you get a vision of how people view us as a country, it's very different than what you think.
Mm, mm. In a good way?
In a good way, because a lot of people love America,
Yeah.
and they love our process.
Yeah.
But because we have allies that are all English speaking, and well, the French are an ally as well. But most of the world speaks English, and so I think they think that the United States still represents freedom more than
Yeah.
anything. So
Yeah.
we have to make sure that we keep it free.
And the way we go, the rest of the world often goes. We have a lot of people depending on us to remain strong out in the world. You're an ambassador. You are just a treasure, and I know those of us who still do love our country are grateful to people like you out there, spreading that hope and that optimism. So thank you for that. Thank you for that dose of hope for us today.
Okay, Diane, thank you.
All right, ladies, thanks so much for tuning in. I know this has been a blessing to you today. Please go get the Bible, God Bless the USA Bible.com. We'll have the links in the show notes. Don't give up out there, ladies. Go vote. And we'll see you next time. Lady up.
Around this